So you wanted to talk about smaranam, like remembering, right? Remembrance.
Yeah. I was thinking, remembering means a lot of things actually. Of course, the very basic thing is that you're learning verses and going over those verses. Sometimes you learn verses and then after you've learnt them, then you forget them again. So I guess one of the things about keeping you remembering is always, if you're always handing the knowledge on, always preaching, always sharing what you've learned, then that helps you to remember, to keep it fresh,
So sharing, remembering and sharing go hand in hand, I guess.
Yeah, and how it applies, how remembering ties in with, it's like we talk about being Krishna conscious, so there's a tendency to think that that would mean you kind of pop into this consciousness. You'll wake up one day and you'll just be Krishna conscious. But for us in the beginning, being Krishna conscious means remembering Krishna. And we consciously choose to disconnect from Krishna at times so that we can pursue. It's the 10th offense, isn't it? Even after hearing so many instructions, to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions. So there's so many things telling you why you shouldn't forget Krishna. But still, if it doesn't facilitate something that you want to do, then okay, we'll have to disconnect from Krishna. We'll connect with him again later on, but right now we're gonna forget him. So remembering isn't just a question of having a good memory. It's a question of also being having a high level of integrity, that you've committed to remembering Krishna, and if you don't, then that's an offense. An offense to the holy name is to maintain material attachment, even after understanding so many instructions. So you understand all these things, but so you have got an excuse. So then it becomes an offense, So that's kind of heavy, isn't it? Because we're thinking, well, I'll try and remember, as if it's kind of optional. But if you don't remember, then you're making an offense.
What is it in us that makes us like make that choice to forget?
Manda Samanda Matio. Well, the atmosphere, the energy that we're immersed in is making us lazy, disturbed, distracted. And if we don't proactively, strategically work out how we're going to defend ourselves against that forgetfulness, then we will, you don't have to, but you will just slump in by default into a lazy and forgetful mentality.
So strategic planning is required.
Yeah, you may find that when you're in this type of situation, like I found it was doing the shows, the rock concerts was very difficult because we would all separate up and we couldn't really work it together because of the security. So we'd all have to kind of go our different ways, do the camps in different sections, and then sneak in eventually into the main thing. You're kind of just on your own, really. And there's so many opportunities there presented, for sense gratification. So and then to switch out, then to the next thing to just get up and chant your japa. So now that I have a choice, I wouldn't choose to put myself in harm's way like that. I think it's very risky. If brahmacharis are going to do it, then they should do it in twos, But otherwise, I think it's really so strategically. You could see, well, that wasn't good for me. It had a bad effect. It impacted badly on my japa, and so I'm going to avoid that in the future. I'm going to steer clear of that. Same, we were doing Saturday nights in the pubs. So we get dropped off at 6 and then meet the driver at midnight. You'd be there in the pubs on your own, going round, and that as well. I wouldn't. Maybe just here and there for a marathon, for over an extended period of time. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. So we have to make like kind of proactive plans to be able to remember Krishna, right?
Yeah, because you may find that being in this situation makes me forgetful. Just give me a second, back over. Someone's just pulled up in a white van.
Yeah, sure.
He's gone now. Don't know what it was, whether he was trying to deliver something.
Fair enough. Nice.
Yeah, and then when you're chanting, have you sufficiently stirred up relevant subject matter that you can dwell on whilst chanting? Or are you just going to leave it to potluck? I'm just going to get up and chant, and don't know what I'm going to be remembering today, but hopefully it'll be something nice. I think you're asking for trouble. If you're going to chant like that, you have to think beforehand, okay, before I've gone through this difficulty right now, I'm feeling quite weak. I'll need to read 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, or whatever it is that is your go-to, that you find inspires you. I'll need to read that. I'll need to build up my confidence again, and then I'll need to dwell on that whilst I'm chanting, so that other things don't come in that I remember that undermine my enthusiasm and confidence to chant. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because Rupa Goswami is saying we must be enthusiastic, endeavour with confidence, and then be patient. And you can't really do those things unless you're remembering the right type of things,
Is it also because I heard before whatever we are meditating on in japa gets supercharged? Is that, have you had any experience with that? So like if you're thinking about material desires, then they become more fulfilled by the power of the holy name.
Yeah, I remember one time I was chanting in the motorhome, and my mind was churning like a washing machine, and the Torah desires were coming up. And the chanting wasn't making it better, it was making it worse. I was thinking, what am I going to do, So I started saying, calling out Gauranga in between each mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Gauranga, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. And I could do it so fast she wouldn't even know I was doing it, And because I was thinking, well, Lord Chaitanya, I'm offending the holy name here because there's so many material desires coming up, and the holy name's not pleased with this at all. But Lord Chaitanya is so merciful that we just read this in the morning. We read a point out to all the devotees, and so this morning I read this point out, and it was by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and I just find it to really, really, really powerful, because he's saying that until you're free of anarthas, so you should be approaching Lord Chaitanya, especially when you're okay. There it is. Get ready for this one. This will blow your socks off. So he says, first chant the name of Gauranga. This is from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, that 3-volume set of books. Got it here.
Back to Prakash Maharaj.
Yeah. He says, first chant the name of Gauranga. By his mercy there will be an arta nivritti. Then there's the possibility of arta pravritti. If one does not obey Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both his worship of Radharani and his claims to be a manjari are false. A sadhaka still infested with anartas should worship Gaura. When free from anartas, he may worship Krishna. While yet unfit due to anartas, anyone who deceptively attempts to approach Krishna will be slain by Krishna's Vishnu aspect, as were Aga, Baka, and Putana. He gave the analogy of an opium smoker standing on one side of a river with the fire for lighting his pipe on the other. Similarly, a devotee desirous to unite with Krishna remains separated by the raging river of his disqualifications.
Damn.
That was a humdinger. So especially we should be approaching Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, our Guru, for help. I remember one time I sent an email to Shiv Ramash. I was just saying that I'd gone through a very difficult time, and then suddenly I'd started reading his Krishna Sangati, and all the clouds of despair dissipated, and again hope shone through, and I was enthused to carry on. And the next minute, my phone went, and it was Shiv Ramash, and I was like that with my phone. Hare Krishna, and he goes, "There's no need to feel despair."
What?
It was just encouraging me, like anything, you know. And it really struck me that he's somebody that's so concerned, and he loves us so much. He doesn't want to see any harm come to us. He doesn't want us to become discouraged at all. He's trying to give us all the ammunition, all the knowledge, all the encouragement, all the empowerment possible, you know, so that we can go back.
You know, if you are feeling discouraged, what is something that you can tell yourself, especially if you're like, maybe if you're isolated or you're not getting, you know, because when we get discouraged, we tend to pull ourselves away from devotee association sometimes, or, you know what I mean? If we're not near devotees, what can you tell yourself?
Well, sometimes if you're feeling discouraged in the association of devotees, you feel out of place, and you feel like, you know, maybe I'm not being realistic. These devotees, they must be in a special category from me, and I need to be realistic, and, you know, I can't pretend anymore that I'm okay about everything, but I need to open up to somebody and just be really honest with somebody, and then if somebody can hear exactly where I'm at, and then he says, "That's okay, just carry on. Things will get better." Then it's encouraging to know that, because your mind is telling you just the opposite. It's saying, "Well, what's the point? What's the point in carrying on? You know, you're wasting your time. You're kidding yourself on. You're getting nowhere. You're not a devotee, and you're not a materialist. You're nothing. Be one or the other." And that's the way of the mind.
And how do we
it's
find?
Funny, actually, where I was.
Sorry, I was wondering, how do we find somebody? How do we find someone that we can reveal our minds to? Like, how can we find that person that we can trust?
You find somebody. Yeah, you find somebody first of all that you can reveal a little bit of your mind to. Only a little bit, just a fragment of it, and then you see how that goes. Or the other thing is you reveal your mind to somebody, you trust them, and then you see if that's going to work out, because it may be that at the time he's on his best behavior, and he's like, "Oh, Prabhu, everything will be fine, and, you know, I think you're a great devotee." He's really encouraging you, but then he later on, you may get like an attitude off him and think, "Oh, he's actually lost respect for me," although he's still trying to be nice. He's more touched by the fact that I've chosen him, I've trusted him.
Yeah.
He's kind of getting mileage out of that, to making him feel important. But then in the long run, he's kind of fed up with me now. He's kind of like, you know, thinking I'm daft, you know, I keep doing all these daft things all the time, and he's starting to become a bit so either that happens, or it goes the other way, where he starts realizing that because you trust him, that he can trust you. And then the relationship can go deeper. So that's something you won't find out until after an extended period of time. You just kind of take the leap, you take the risk, you reveal a bit, things seem okay, then he actually seems to have more appreciation and respect for you, and then you find yourself, you're getting stronger, you're not getting so caught by those things anymore, because you're being accountable to somebody. Every time something goes wrong, you know that you're going to have to make a report about this, so you're really thinking twice about whether you want to just fall for it. Because if you're just doing it and you're isolated, nobody knows anyway, so you can think, "Wow, nobody's going to know," you know. But if you know that you've got this transparent relationship with somebody, and every time you do something, you're going to have to report back, "Oh, I did it again," he's going to be thinking, well, you're a total numpty, you know. How long is it going to take before the penny drops, you know? So then you just even it out of false ego, you're thinking, I can't fall again, you know. I'm gonna have to try and steer clear of this.
Yeah. I feel like it's a very natural thing as like human beings to want to reveal your mind to somebody. Like Rupa Goswami says, it's love and exchange.
Yeah.
I guess even in the material world as well, people, girls go and catch up over a cup of coffee and they talk about their mind. Like it's like a common thing that's done. But like I remember in our Bhakti course, Radharaman Prabhu was talking about how you have to be careful who you reveal your mind to, because the type of advice they give you could actually end up taking you away from Krishna consciousness if they're not sort of devotionally inclined.
Yeah.
So it's something we've got to be kind of careful who we open ourselves up to, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
and also, if you open yourself up to somebody that's not versed in Krishna conscious philosophy, he's not going to. He's going to misunderstand what you're saying completely. He's not going to understand what it means, because the way we speak and reveal our difficulties, we have a certain language that we speak in, and if the person you're speaking to isn't Krishna conscious, they won't grasp the significance of the things that we're saying, you know.
Yeah, I guess like one common one is like like if you speak to somebody about like sex desire or things like that, like like a lot of psychology and things like that in the Western world, if you go to a therapist and talk about sex desire, they'll probably tell you, oh, it's actually healthy and you should be masturbating because masturbation is really good for you, and like these types of it's like warped help.
Yeah, and we see that as a disease. They see that as a healthy condition. I mean, that verse, Vikradita, I sent you the verse, and you see, it says, gradually destroys the disease of the heart. And as I heard that, I was thinking, oh my God, that's what it is. It's a disease, you know. So why am I so attracted to this? You know, imagine the doctor says you've got a disease, and then you think, I know, but it's a nice one. And you're doing the thing, you know, the doctor's saying, don't do this, don't do that. And you're thinking, yeah, but it's actually quite nice, this disease. And you're going against what he's telling you, you know. So, and it's funny, you know, isn't it amazing how your memory works? When I learned that verse, I'd forgotten that it was a diseased condition. I was struggling with it. I knew I shouldn't be doing it, but and my mind was contemplating on material desires, but then it really hits your heart. This is a disease. Wow. So I think the way forgetfulness works is unless you're constantly over and over again reading the same points, you will, just by the nature of the material energy is like dust, and it just settles. And every day you've got to sweep away that fine film of forgetfulness. And if you don't, after a few days, you forget not this four regular principles, you forget that Krishna is God, you forget, you know, just the most obvious things that you wouldn't have even conceived that you could forget. You'll just forget them.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Yeah, that the idea that it's a disease, like as well, like these material things. Do you know the demon that got Lord Shiva to give him the benediction that when he touches someone's head, explodes? Yeah. Do you remember the demon's name? I can't remember.
Cutting bits of flesh off and offering it in the fire.
Exactly. So he'd cut his own flesh off. And because Dave Marit Maharaj was telling that story while he was here, he told it in 2 classes. He told the story twice.
Vishikana or something like that. Yeah.
Something Asura, of Vrishasura or something like that. Rikasura. But basically, I asked Maharaj, like, you know, demons, they're so, you know, they care about their material position and their bodies, and they're in the bodily conception of life. Why would he cut off his own flesh? And why would Hiranyakashipu like let ants eat the body if he's in the bodily concept of life? And first thing, Maharaj made fun of me for saying demons. Like, he's like, oh yeah, those demons. Us devotees, on the other hand, like he's basically saying we're all a demon. And then he said like, whenever we are doing, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but like, we're cutting off our own flesh when we're doing activities which are harmful to us. Like, and he basically said, a demon's mentality is, when I want something, I'll get it no matter what. So Hiranyakashipu wanted something, so he sacrificed everything to get it. Same with this demon who's cutting off chunks of flesh. Cut that out. But yeah, he wanted it, so he got it. And then Maharaj said that he has an Ayurvedic doctor, and whenever he comes to the devotees in New Zealand, he gets them to talk about the harmful effects of basically like illicit sex, like what it does for your body, and like how actually engaging in illicit sex is really, really harmful, you know, like semen retention and the benefits of it. But just interesting, like the idea of whenever we are trying to enjoy separate from Krishna, we're actually cutting off our own flesh. Like it's quite a nice image to have, you know.
Yeah, and there's a guy I see every year, and I went to see him this year, and he had an operation on his throat because he got a disease from oral sex, and the line went like that all the way across, like a big curve like this, and they'd taken the whole flesh on like a flat, and they'd have to scrape it, you know. Oof. And I was thinking, well, that's a pretty heavy reminder that illicit sex life is not a good idea, but he's choosing not to remember that because he has a certain agenda of desires that he wants to fulfill. And so he has to look at this as, okay, well, we went a bit wrong there. We'll have to just be careful the next time. You know, he's not looking at that this is a total no-go now. You know, this is maternal nature telling you, don't be a naughty boy.
Yeah. Cutting off chunks of flesh.
I think also one thing that I was talking to a devotee yesterday, and he's been around now maybe 35 years, and he doesn't feel like he's doing so great. He's outside. He's got a job. He turns up at the temple every couple of weeks, and he tries to do his rounds every day. Tries to find eggs, and he's thinking he's not doing so well. And I was just thinking, I wonder how many devotees that have been around for 35 years just start isolating themselves, because there's this kind of artificial idea that the devotees are these group of fired up brahmacharis that have only been devotees for 4 or 5 years and they're completely gung-ho. But if we look at the big picture, all the devotees that have been around for 35 years, how many of them are gung-ho? Or how many of them have had to go and find situations where they can, you know, fulfill some of their material desires and still practice a level of Krishna consciousness that they can. And then if he was to look at himself compared to all the devotees that have been around for 35 years, you probably find he's doing pretty good. He's probably in the top 10%, you know.
Yeah.
So I just think that one of the ways that Maya kind of slows us down and discourages us is she does start to isolate us, and she starts to take away our memory, our reasoning, you know. Whereas if we were to remember, well, I joined with 40 devotees, and where are they all now, you know? How many of them are still chanting and keeping up their Krishna consciousness, you know? And then that can be encouraging to make you realize I'm not doing that bad after all, you know, rather than just annihilating yourself.
Yeah, it seems more important to stay in the fight. You know, like, I guess it's really easy. That's how Maya gets you, isn't it? Like, convincing you that there's no point in trying. Like, that seems to be the main, like, why bother?
Another thing to remember, which can be encouraging, is when Kshatras used to get together thousands of years ago, they would battles that they'd been in, and they'd be showing each other the scars that they had, you know. And the more scars you had, the more that kind of showed that you were like a real tough fighter, you know. Yeah. So in the same way, as devotees, we want to have like a perfect Krishna conscious life where we don't make any mistakes, where we don't lose any battles, and where we just kind of float through everything like a Paramahamsa. But the fact is that if you can get through all these problems and these ups and downs and these difficulties, that's just another scar, which is to your glory, that you got smashed here and you got smashed there and you got your arm chopped off there, but you just got back up, you sewed it back on, and you just carried on fighting. That's a tough warrior.
How can we get over that kind of perfectionist mentality?
You just have to stick around because it'll get knocked out of you, because trying to be a perfectionist is your false ego, and the false ego there's also duality with false ego. So one side of your false ego is you're trying to be totally perfect, but the other duality side of the false ego is that you're just like a total bum, just like practically going to go and sell big issue, and just lie around on the streets, So you've gone from being a perfectionist to being a completely out of it, irresponsible, complete, mundane character. So that's the duality of the false ego. So instead of trying to be a perfectionist or being totally out of it, why not just be mediocre? Why not just be a regular, mediocre, plod along, middle of the road devotee that doesn't do any superstar stuff, but doesn't do anything too crazy, and he just plods along and does his bit.
That seems to be the like a simple path, Those kind of devotees seem like the ones that.
He goes, no, I don't want to just be mediocre. I don't want to be average. Come on, I want to show everyone I'm super clever. I'm super thingy. But then, because you push yourself up into this artificial category, the duality is then you'll have to drop down from, instead of just being like a middle of the road guy, you're going to have to be a real bum in the gutter, So just
really
tread the middle road,
So I don't know if I'm hearing correctly, but the more you like falsely push yourself or project yourself to be a version higher than what you are, then you're going to have to experience the opposite of that to the same degree that you kind of lied about where you're actually at.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
You've pushed the pendulum artificially out of its zone. So when it swings, it's going to swing back to balance. And then eventually you can balance and just become level and just steady, But as long as you've got this fluctuation going on all the time, you have to have a down after the up, It's just the way it is.
So I guess we're trying to become more equipoised. I think that's
equipoised
in all situations, like happiness, distress, victory, defeat.
There's a nice prayer in the when you're doing puja, just as the ground is the only shelter for one who's fallen, so you, my Lord, are the only shelter for one who's offended you. So don't forget, we forget things, and then we think, well, I better be sincere and continue to forget then. No, you forgot because you got caught out, whether you did that consciously or unconsciously. You were caught out. But don't try and justify continually forgetting now. Bring yourself back, remember, and just try and find out how I'm going to increase my memory powers so that I can always be remembering Krishna, even in the face of the most tempting reasons to forget him.
Yeah. Is that the throwing and the covering? I keep thinking about this, the throwing and covering potency. Like the throw is your initial forgetting, and then the covering is you continue to forget.
So the original covering is you forget, and then you get thrown down, because once you forget, you're disconnected. You don't have a rope anymore. So once you're not holding on to that rope, once she's covered you and you've let go, then she can throw you right down. She can really, really drop you down, and when you drop down, after you've fallen down, the first thing you think is, how did that happen? How could I allow myself? And you get really angry with yourself that you didn't see it coming. But that's the covering potency that once you become covered, then she can easily just take you and throw you down to the most degraded thing,
Scary. So what's the best method of remembrance or like fostering remembrance?
Well, the best is to hear. The second best is to see. And then the third best is by experience. And then the 10th best is that after many, unfortunately for most of us, after many, many times have been knocked over the head with a club, we finally think, do you know, I think I'm going to keep my helmet on from now on.
Yeah.
By
It's
the
a,
time
it's too much. So you waste a lot of time taking the beatings.
Yeah, you know, we go the slow way. We think it's going to be easier if we go the slow way. It just prolongs the agony.
Is that due to like contact with the modes, basically, like because you think it's because of your like lower modes kind of mentality? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Some devotees, they're kind of in the mode of goodness already. They maybe been brought up in the Brahminical family, and the idea of some of the stuff, you know, that we have in artists, they're just like, they wouldn't even go there, you know. So, and so it can seem like they're really well situated. They're in the mode of goodness, but the good thing about coming from the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion is there's a real intensity to take shelter, because if you don't, you're finished, you know. Whereas if you don't, it's like one time Srila Prabhupada was talking about Bhakti True Maharaj, and he says if Bhakti True Maharaj falls down, he'll just fall down to the mode of goodness. So for us, generally, for most of us, you know, when we forget Krishna, then it's a high price we pay, because we've come from such a heavily mode of ignorance, mode of passion situation. So we go crashing down to that. But then there's more of an intensity there that we can't allow ourselves to do that, because it's too much at risk. We can't afford to play around with the material energy at all. We have to stay clear, keep ourselves strict, keep ourselves working hard, always read the books, always chant, then we can stay safe. So we don't get that kind of sense, that sense of knowledge and happiness that comes with the mode of goodness. So in one sense, that's good. I've seen sometimes the devotees in the mode of goodness, they kind of, you know, they know that if they leave Krishna consciousness, they're not going to fall down to any heavy sinful activity anyway. So it's a kind of more, they feel more relaxed and comfortable about their practicing spiritual life. But that can also be a danger as well. That can also be a weakness.
Is there a way we can just like flick a switch and get serious? Like, is there, because sometimes you get so fed up, like you said, of getting hit over the head with a club. Is there a way you can use that and just like really push off it?
It depends if we're wanting to switch the button and get really serious because we want to please our Guru Maharaj and please Krishna, that's one thing. But if we're doing it because then it'll make our life easier, then we'll become famous as a great devotee, then everybody will respect us. It may have a twist to it. It may be that we want to avoid suffering. We're actually looking for liberation. So we're thinking, if I can just flick the switch and get liberated, that'll be the end of all my suffering, and then I can just enjoy myself.
So the motivation is important.
Yeah, you know, if you're strongly attached to your guru and you really want to please him and you don't want to let him down, then that by having that attachment to him, you can transcend so many difficulties and so many problems by being connected like that with him, you know. And to his Vani, not just that you want to hang around him and be with him. Of course, that's also nice, but that you hear his instructions, you read his books, and you start applying that, you know.
Yeah.
And it may take some time, because we do have that motivation that we've taken up Krishna consciousness because we want to be like a demigod, where demigods can enjoy, but they don't get any reaction. So we're looking, can I just have like a really fun life with no reaction, and then go back to Krishna at the end of it all, you know? So Krishna's thinking, okay, well, that's not going to work. You're not going to go back to Godhead like that. You're just going to go to the heavenly planets. So I'm going to try and break it to you gently that your attitude's wrong. And just hang on and let me do that. Don't freak out and run away. Just realize, okay, this is part of the course.
Yeah. Very nice. Okay, I think that's a good episode. What do you reckon?
Yeah.